Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Trustone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Trustone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Trustone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at trustone.org.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Raker, your host for this edition of the program. We're delighted to welcome our guest, Marty Kelly, who's the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for Trustone Financial Credit Union. Marty, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Bill, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, we have some important things to talk about in the program, but I do want to acknowledge that Trustone is one of the financial supporters of Access to Democracy, and we appreciate that. Thank you for helping us keeping the program going.
Again, Bill, my pleasure. We're proud sponsors of ATD, as we like to call it around the office.
Right. Well, today we want to talk about a topic, credit unions for kids. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, I think we need a little bit of background on yourself and on credit unions. So Marty, you've been in this business a long time.
I have.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we'll move into the credit union world.
Sure. I was born in New Jersey, of all places. Moved out to the Midwest, to Iowa, in 1973. I was 6 years old in the first grade. My parents are born and raised New Jersey. My dad had a job opportunity, took it in Iowa. Friends and family thought we were moving to Idaho, Ohio. Nobody could point to Iowa on a map, but it was a big adjustment, certainly for my folks. And my mom kicked and screamed the whole way and said, we're going back to the East Coast after 3 years. Well, they fell in love with it, Bill. There's nothing that beats the Midwest lifestyle. Fantastic place to raise a family. So they stayed. I grew up in Iowa City, Iowa. Went to school at Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa. And then graduate school at the University of Iowa. Got my master's at the University of Iowa. Along the way, fell in love with the high school sweetheart, married her. Julie, my wife, we have 5 kids together. And life is good, Bill. I've had, I don't think a psychiatrist would make a whole lot of money off of me. I've had a wonderful childhood. I have a wonderful family. We're happy. I get along with my siblings. My kids are all great. Love my wife. Everything is just wonderful in my world, to be perfectly honest.
Well, congratulations about that. I'm sure that has helped you accomplish many of the things that you've achieved in your career and the recognitions that you've gotten. I know for several years you've gotten multiple awards from the state level and the national level on the marketing initiatives and marketing programs that you've had in the credit union world that you've been working in.
Yes.
So because we're going to talk about credit unions for kids, Tell us briefly, what is a credit union and how does it differ from other financial institutions?
Sure. A credit union is a financial cooperative. It's different than a bank. It's similar to a bank, offers many of the same products and services, helps individuals with their personal finances, checking accounts, first mortgages, credit cards, all the things you'd find at a typical financial institution. It's the structure that makes a credit union different. But one of the things that probably appeals to me more than the structure or some of the deeper financial differences between banks and credit unions is really the philosophy. It's a people helping people philosophy. It's a cooperative organization, and by cooperative, it's got a dual meaning. Joint ownership is part of that cooperative nature, but also you find a lot of cooperation across credit unions. And we'll talk about, hopefully, some examples of how we do that. Credit Unions for Kids is a perfect example of how credit unions cooperate with each other for the greater good.
Well, that's great. I think you've explained how a credit union is structured, what its purpose is, and it's a great segue into the charitable work that comes from the philosophy of people helping people.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's what we want to get into. But before we transition to that, what got you interested in credit unions? What got you into that field of work?
I'd like to tell you that ever since I was on the playground, I was dreaming about working for a credit union. That's just not the case. When I was in graduate school, I took a part-time job as a teller for the University of Iowa Credit Union, now Green State Credit Union, and worked there, demonstrated a little bit of creativity that the CEO picked up on, and when I finished grad school, he said, put that kid in the marketing department. So I got a job as really the first marketing person for that credit union, and just fell in love with that discipline. But moreover, fell in love with credit unions and what they stood for. And you know, I think a lot of people that do business with credit unions also probably follow a similar path. They choose a credit union maybe because it's convenient or they've got a great rate or something like that. They don't really know the philosophy when they join a credit union, but they stay because of that philosophy, because it feels different than a bank might. I definitely stayed in the business because of that, because I felt good about what I was doing. I knew we were helping people each and every day, and it I don't know, it makes you feel good about yourself when you go home. You're not necessarily focused on driving as much profit as possible to the bottom line. How can we help people today tends to be the primary question that you're asking yourself when you show up to work in the morning.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us and the explanation of the credit union philosophy and why and how you are attracted to that and motivated by the work that you do. With that background, let's transition into the focus on the topic that we want to discuss today,
right.
Credit unions for kids. Tell us, what is credit unions for kids?
That?
What is that? You know, I don't think most people don't know about that.
Probably not.
But they should.
I couldn't agree more. Probably a well-kept secret and shouldn't be. But to understand what credit unions for kids is, let's maybe pull the lens back a little bit. And you may have heard of the Children's Miracle Network. Had several telethons. Famous Marie Osmond is usually talking about it at the national level. The Children's Miracle Network is simply a large organization that does whatever it can to benefit children's hospitals across the U.S. and Canada. They sponsor 170 different hospitals throughout the country, and that's who they are, right? That big organization. Then they have their sponsors. They have various companies, businesses that are key participants in their program, key donors to the Children's Miracle Network. One of those big supporters are all credit unions. That's the Credit Unions for Kids program. Again, that's a perfect example of how credit unions get together and cooperate. It's not one credit union. It's not just Trustone, or it's not just Affinity Plus or Wings or anything like that. It's all credit unions across the country that are getting together and saying, we're credit unions for kids, and we're going to have this significant impact on the Children's Miracle Network's mission. So you've got that national group, then we've got our state group. So we're Credit Unions for Kids of Minnesota, and our goal is to support Children's Miracle Network sponsored hospitals in the state of Minnesota, of which there's one. That's Gillette children's specialty health care. So our primary mission, after all of that lead up, our primary mission is to really support Gillette Children's Specialty Health Care.
Well, that's quite a mission, and one that you're to be congratulated about. And you've been involved with the Credit Unions for Kids activities and fundraising here in Minnesota for quite some time. How did you decide that you were going to provide some of your efforts and your talents to work in that area?
Well, another story that I wish was a little bit more dramatic than it was. My boss, a gentleman named Phil Bachman, came into my office one day and said, Marty, I'd like you to serve on this Credit Unions for Kids committee. It's either you or Jill. And I said, why don't you give it to Jill? I'm already on a committee. And Phil said, well, I'll think about it. And he walked out of my office, and about 3 minutes later he came back and said, I thought about it, you're on the committee. And he put me on the committee, and I went to it not unlike I went to my first job at a credit union, right? And I learned along the way. It didn't take me long to see, hey, what we're doing is really special here. And particularly as I got to meet some of the recipients of the work that we were doing. I've had a couple of opportunities to visit hospitals, to visit with patients, and boy, Bill, once they get those hooks into you, you just don't turn back. You say, I'm going to give everything I've got to support this program to the greatest of my ability.
And you've been very successful in that, and we're going to see some of that success as we talk through the rest of the program. So you've described for us what Credit Unions for Kids is. And could you elaborate a little bit more on specifically about the mission of that charity?
Sure. And I think it might be helpful to understand that our committee is made up of individuals from credit unions across the state, right? I myself, an employee of Trustone Financial, they've afforded me the opportunity to sit on this committee, but I'm sitting there with representatives, some CEOs, some non-management individuals from other credit unions. So I'm sitting across the table from folks from a highway credit union or a city and county credit union. Groups like that, or individuals representing those credit unions, we all get together and we say, what are ways that we can raise funds for Gillette Children's Hospital? And we've got a couple of tricks up our sleeve that we keep going back to each and every time. Some of those are kind of these macro events that we host. We have a golf tournament coming up June 15th where we invite both credit union representatives and the vendors that serve credit unions to come out and play some golf with us, and we charge them, we overcharge them to play on the golf course, and we have a whole bunch of opportunities along the way for them to continue to loosen their checkbooks, their wallets, and put some money towards a really good cause. We've done bowling events, we've done a whole variety of things, but again, these are at the macro level. We've done some pretty unusual things as well. Karaoke contests, we've had, well, Bill, we had you yourself dress in a inflatable sumo outfit and wrestle for money.
That's true. I did that.
And yes. I believe you received, this was decades, this was before I was even in the program, and I believe you sustained an injury that you suffer with to this day.
Well, I have a thumb. The thumb is still here, but it has a little problem now and then, yes.
Damaged your hitchhiking career after that. But again, I think that's a great demonstration of you know, we're going to be as creative as possible, and the whole idea is we've got to raise awareness, we've got to raise funds, and it's not always going to be by just simply knocking on a door with hat in hand. We're going to go out there and we're going to say, look, what's a unique way we can draw attention to this program? What's a unique way? Seeing Bill Raker in a sumo suit wrestling people, that a lot of people pay good money for that opportunity, and that's exactly what we've done. But that's at the macro level. Then we also encourage all of the credit unions in the state to do their own thing, which happens on a very, very regular basis. Credit unions might have various dress down days, wear jeans to the office, pay us $5 to wear jeans, and we'll throw it in a bucket, and we'll collect all that money at the end of the day, and we'll make sure it gets to the Credit Union Foundation for Credit Unions for Kids. Our friends at Highway Credit Union have a weekly cookout where they're out there grilling some delicious food and serving it to their staff, but charging them a few bucks and taking that money and putting it towards Credit Unions for Kids. There's a whole number of ways that individual credit unions think of to support the program, and then we just try to encourage that. Maybe we act as a funnel of best practices, sharing among credit unions. That's one thing about our industry, Bill, is there are no secrets. You can get together with a credit union right across the street that you might think of as a competitor and say, how did you do that? How did you raise so much money in such a short period of time? Minco Credit Union up in Cambridge does an outstanding program where they have their members participate in various donations in their lobbies, and they raise an extraordinary amount of money. We have them put on practically seminars telling other credit unions how it's done. Anything that we can do to maximize that money that ultimately we get to Gillette. And I'll tell you, one of the things that's consistent throughout the macro and the micro events is getting those Gillette children and families involved. And that's really tugs at your heartstrings. It really just has an impact. It's not just writing a check and sending it off to some unknown entity. It's seeing the gratitude on moms and dads' faces. It's seeing a kid who has an ability to do something that perhaps they've never had the opportunity to do before. And just the joy and the good feeling that you get saying, I'm writing this check today, and I know it's all going to Gillette. We don't charge any administrative fees. We're all volunteer. We funnel it through the Minnesota Credit Union Foundation. But we get it out there to those families, and we can see directly just what it's doing, and it's powerful, really, really powerful.
I think we have a photo that we're going to take a look at here.
We do.
With you and one of the children that benefited from Gillette Children's Hospital. Is his name Nick?
Nicholas, yeah.
Nicholas.
This is you and I and Nicholas.
Tell us a little bit about Nicholas in the picture.
This is Bill and I when we worked together back in 2007. The two of us with Nicholas. Nicholas was born without the ability to walk. Eventually, Nicholas ended up having both of his legs amputated and replaced with prosthetics that allowed him to get out and run and do things. Nicholas was just like any young man his age, just a delight. You wouldn't know that he was dealing with what he was dealing with, which would be just such mental baggage for anyone, including his parents. Happiest group of people I've probably ever seen. The joy that they got through the services provided at Gillette and our ability to fund those services, just outstanding. Nicholas, he was a big Spider-Man fan. So am I. Nicholas and I had a lot of Spider-Man talk between us. We weren't really talking about things that were sad. We were talking about happy stuff. So Nicholas got me going on Spider-Man, and don't you get me going on Spider-Man or I'll go off on that. But we just went and had a great time. And he came to our credit union. He demonstrated the use of his new prosthetic limbs. It was just a ton of fun. And it was great that you and I had an opportunity to pose. And I noticed, Bill, that this picture from 2007, I've clearly aged, but you have not.
Well, I have a secret, but
do you? That's a whole different episode, I think.
Yeah, that's a great picture. Appreciate the opportunity to share that with our viewers. So Marty, you told us the mission of Credit Union for Kids, and you described some of the different things that the group, the organization, does to raise funds. Mm-hmm. So tell us about how much fundraising has been done, and where do these funds go? How are they used?
Well, there's a couple of questions in there. The committee has been around about 30 years, give or take. This golf tournament that I mentioned, we're entering our 28th annual golf event in June. The committee's been around for about 30 years, and We've raised over $5 million in that time, and that is largely coming from employees.
Now that's just here in Minnesota.
That's just here in Minnesota.
Just Minnesota, $5 million.
It's raised in Minnesota and it stays in Minnesota. So all of that money is funneled. We don't take administrative fees, as I mentioned earlier. We don't take anything off the top. That is pure donation money that goes straight to Gillette. It's funneled through the Minnesota Credit Union Foundation just because they kind of act as a bit of a hub for a few charitable efforts that credit unions like to participate in. But that goes directly to Gillette. Now, Gillette Hospital is, they're known nationally and internationally for a few areas of specialty. Their main areas of focus, muscle and bone issues, brain and nervous system. They're typically trying to correct. They focus on trying to correct. They have some state-of-the-art you can tell I'm a non-medical guy. State-of-the-art stuff out at the hospital. I've witnessed it. I don't understand it. It looks like something out of a science fiction movie, but it's all for the betterment of these young people's lives and their families. The data, if they're showing it on screen right now, I believe they are.
We have a chart we want to put up on the screen that shows the distribution
how it's broken down,
of the contribution to Gillette and how Gillette apportions it in their operations. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right, and you can see it's not just necessarily, you know, I'll tell you my naivete when I first thought, well, we're raising money for a hospital. Aren't they just money-making machines? It just doesn't seem like, you know, I've paid a few hospital bills in my day for various ailments in the Kelly family, and thinking, why does a hospital need more money? Well, this is where it goes, right? This distribution that you're seeing, and the one that kind of sticks out to me, it's 23% for patient services. Now, what that is it's not necessarily for medical support, it's for kind of everything else, right? So if you're a young person and you're in a hospital for an extended period of time, you might be missing out on a little bit of school. Well, the St. Paul School District sends teachers over. We help fund part of that through this patient services program and provides some education for those kids. They're not missing out. They're not falling behind as a result of treatment that they're receiving at the hospital. There are wonderful facilities for parents and family. You think about a patient and they're going through a lot. Their family are going through it just as much, if not more. As the father of 5 children of my own, anything that they experience that hurts them, I'm feeling it 10 times as bad typically. So mom and dad and siblings that are seeing what's happening to a member of their family, what that family member is going through, the hospital does a really, really good job. Gillette does a wonderful job of taking care of the family as well and making sure they're comfortable, providing them with places that they can take a break, that they can rest, that they can stay overnight. They have a Ronald McDonald House facility within Gillette that allows the parents to really kind of live in a little bit more style than you might expect from a typical hospital. On a particular visit one time, they were wheeling in gaming systems for the kids. They had bought a whole bunch of PlayStations and all the stuff that my kids spend countless hours in front of, but things that just improve their quality of life. A hospital stay doesn't have to be a hospital stay, right? It can be something that, let's get some distractions in there. Let's get some fun things. Let's get some athletic programs, music therapy, aromatherapy, all these things that we help fund through patient services. That's really important to me because it tells me that Gillette and our program, we're thinking beyond just one person. We're thinking about a family. We're thinking about a group of people that are impacted by this, and we're helping the entire family, not just one person. And that's so meaningful to me as a family man myself.
Well, truly, it's an admirable mission and objective that Gillette has, as well as the support that it gets from credit unions through Credit Unions for Kids. Do you know how many patients offhand that Gillette has maybe provided services for over some period of time?
I do not, Bill, but I do know that they provide services. It's not just, there are some individuals that they provide services for their entire life. There are others that are just in and out. They might receive a treatment and be home in a few days. It's a long list. It's a very long list. I've had the opportunity to meet several dozen of them over the years. I've never met a happier group of people. It's really been wonderful.
Well, I think we have a video to show to our viewers that is a perfect example of the results of some of the work that Gillette is able to do through the support of credit unions and other organizations. So we'll take a look at the video, and maybe you can describe it a little bit about what it is.
Absolutely.
At Gillette Children's, we are pushing boundaries to transform lives. In all the ways that matter, Peter Atkins is your typical 9-year-old. When you're in Peter's presence, the fact that he can't speak quickly becomes an afterthought. Peter has cerebral palsy and has been treated at Gillette Children's for most of his life. At Gillette, Peter and his family were provided with an adaptive communication device that uses his eye movements to help him communicate. This gave Peter a whole new world of independence, and he'd be the first to tell you.
Because of Gillette, I have a voice.
So?
There's a couple things that stand out to me in that video. The first is just look at the family, right? That's mom and dad and sis, right? Along with the beneficiary of our services, right? Of the hospital services, but also look at the state-of-the-art technology, using your eyes to communicate with your family. They all seem happy too, Bill, right? It's such a wonderful thing. These are really terrible cards that are being dealt to these kids and to these families, but we're changing that. I want to be a part of a group that changes that. I think it's just fantastic, just wonderful.
Well, it's great that credit unions here in Minnesota and across the country want to be a part of helping to change the lives of people of kids who need the services that they're able to get through hospitals like Gillette. And we're coming up to the end of our program here. Marty, if any of our viewers would like to support Credit Unions for Kids or Gillette Children's Hospital, how might they contribute and participate?
Well, you called us a well-kept secret, and let's try not to make that a secret anymore. And I really think, Bill, the best way to do it is visit your credit union. Visit Trustone. Visit any of the credit unions that you might do business or are in your neighborhood. And walk in the door and say, I'd like to donate to Credit Unions for Kids. They can be that conduit that can get funds to our group and through our foundation, ultimately get it to Gillette.
Fantastic. Marty, thank you. Marty Kelly has been our guest. Marty is the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Trustone Financial Credit Union, and one of the leaders in the state that helps to raise funds for Credit Unions for Kids and support the work that is done at Children's Hospital here in Minnesota. Marty, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.